What's good, everybody? It's your boy Rio West. Like to welcome you all back to the Rio West podcast. We on episode 8. Should be on like episode 15 or something like that. But as you know, I've been on a hiatus. But this time it wasn't a situation of me being lazy or having stuff going on outside of creating the content. This was specifically me being really sick and not being able to produce the content that I like to produce. So as of right now, I don't know if you can hear it in my voice or not, but I'm still getting over being really sick. Really, really sick. What I had, I do not know. It was not COVID. I took a test for that, but that came back negative. So but yeah, nonetheless, regardless, we still here. We back. I missed a long time, probably around a month or so, but here I am trying to pump out the content to y'all, trying to get it out to y'all. It's been long overdue. A lot has happened. A lot has happened since the last episode. And I promised myself that I wouldn't delve back into the beef between Kendrick and Drake, but I promise the fan base or fan bases just won't let it in. Just won't let it in. Granted, I know things have happened. I know the pop out show has happened, which has brought talk back up around it. And I know Kendrick dropped the video, which has brought talk back up around it again. But the issue here is the fan, not just the fans of Drake, but the so-called hip hop fans that don't like Kendrick or have an issue with Kendrick. And because they don't like Kendrick or have an issue with Kendrick, they keep creating more excuses or more narratives than the actual fans of Drake. And it's also comical to me. And a lot of them are the so-called hip hop heads. And y'all are so disappointed. And I don't know if y'all recall, if you've been following the podcast or not, but I said back in my earlier episodes when I first started speaking on the beef, before Kendrick even dropped Euphoria, when everybody was clowning Kendrick, talking about he ain't got nothing in the tuck, he not coming out with nothing, y'all gonna be waiting a whole year or two before you hear something back from, before he even dropped Euphoria. And people was like, Kendrick about to get ate up. This ain't Kendrick battle. Kendrick ain't lyrically inclined enough to go up against a lyricist of Drake's caliber. I specifically said on this podcast, and I've said before I even started this podcast, that when it comes to beef and diss records in hip hop, it doesn't come down to who's the best lyricist, who's more technically skilled, or any of that. It comes down to who can disrespect the opposite artist the best and garner the respect from the fan base, who will become the victor. And I told everybody the perfect example of this was Pusha T and Drake. Granted, Pusha T is a great rapper, but he isn't the lyricist that Drake is when it comes to metaphors and schemes. But he smacked Drake around because he had the most disrespectful content. The 40 lines about OVO 40. The bringing his mom, his parents involved in it, attacking him for not being black, leaking the information about him having a child that he ended up having. All that lyricism stuff went out the window. When you have the most disrespectful record, that's what matters. But when I brought this to light, when I brought this to everybody's attention, they didn't want to hear it. It's oh no, you don't know what you're talking about. That was a one-time instance. Yeah, Pusha had information that nobody knew about, and that's what led to him getting the victory. I that wasn't even the only example I used. I also spoke on the back and forth between Royce and Lupe. Now, granted, both are top tier lyricists. But when the way Royce approached the back and forth was that it was just a friendly spar, and we was gonna see who's the most gifted lyricist between the both of us. I'm gonna show you why I'm better. That's not how Lupe approached it. Lupe approached it in a disrespectful manner, which shocked me because I thought that Lupe was gonna come back in the same fashion because that's the type of artist that Lupe is, but that isn't. He approached it in an extremely disrespectful manner, and in everybody's eye, at least in majority of the public's eye, in my eyes, Lupe won it because of that. Because I was expecting Royce to come back, because I was like, you got to come back after that, but Royce didn't, because he said he didn't look at the situation like that. That was his friend, and he couldn't genuinely say the things that he said about him. But this is around the time they were having a falling out. So he was like, if that was the case, then I'm stepping out because I don't even want to have to say disparaging things about you. But another example of it doesn't matter how technically skilled you are. It doesn't matter how lyrically gifted you are. It matters who has the most disrespectful record. But again, when I brought these things up and I brought these things to light, nobody was trying to hear, nah, he met his match. This ain't the one. Drake about to mop the floor with him. And I warned everybody. I said, okay, I'm just letting you know. Go look back. I think it was like episode 1 or 2 of this podcast. I said I brought all of this up before anything even hit the fan. I brought all of this up. And now here we are today. Landslide, a murder. You had a funeral. Then you had a repass, and I don't even know what you call the rest of this stuff that they doing now with the video and everything, walking on his grave and everything. But those same people that was telling me, you wrong, he's outclassed, he's outmatched, having a hard time dealing with the fact that Drake lost. So now there's all these excuses. There's all these excuses to why Drake won, supposedly, or why or not just why Drake won, but why Kendrick isn't that great. You've had people point out lyrics from the disses that Kendrick has said that weren't, like I said, weren't high-end lyrics, should I say. They weren't high-end lyrics. But let's face it, any artist, any rapper, when you write so much, or especially when you're writing like an extremely long verse, or a song, should I say, an extremely long song that's like 4 or 5 minutes. And then you're writing, and you got heavy hitting line after heavy hitting line after heavy hitting line. Eventually, you're going to throw in some filler in there just to get you back. You might hit a wall. I've done it before. You might hit a wall, and you just want to get past that to get to your next bar. Eventually, you might throw some filler in there. That's okay. That's cool. If the rest of the song makes up for the little bit of filler you do put in there. But for some reason, we ignore that aspect, and we want to focus in on the lines from Kendrick, like he's Terrence Thorne, I'm Terrence Crawford. Yeah, I'm whooping feet. They like to bring that one up. Or the one where he's talking about, I hate the way that you walk, the way that you talk. They bring all this up, and they act like because of these lines, they focus in on these lines, not the other stuff he was saying, but they focus in on these lines that's why Kendrick is sad, or that's why Kendrick isn't top 100 all time. It's a lot of this has gotten brought up because of all these lists that have came out, that all these different entities have had Kendrick rated number 2 or at least in the top 5 all time. Now, am I gonna say that Kendrick is top 5 all time? Not in my personal top 5, but he's definitely creeping up there because of all of this here. Not just because of all this here lately. The reason he's going up in my list, or why I'm considering him now, is because of all the attention that has been pushed his way, and because when I look at his catalog and what he's done, and how I personally feel about his catalog compared to a lot of the other people that I've listened to coming up down the line, now I start to think maybe I should have him a lot higher than I have. But whatever, we're going to get past that. Back on topic. So because these lists have dropped and these people have had Kendrick rated number 2 or in the top 5 or higher than Drake, higher than Wayne, higher than a lot of these other artists, people have been getting so offended and so appalled that they start disrespecting Kendrick. They start trying to come up with reasons and excuses for why he not only shouldn't be in the top 5, top 10, but why he isn't top 100 all time, and why he isn't even a great artist, and why he's trash. If you're one of those people, your opinion on music can never be respected ever again in life. Because right now you're talking off of sheer emotion right now. You're talking off sheer emotion right now because, one, either you're a big Drake fan and you're pissed off about what's going on with Drake and all the love that Kendrick's getting, so now you're doing anything to disparage Kendrick. Or 2, you don't like Kendrick and you don't like all this attention that he's getting because he's knocked off one of your greatest. So now you're trying to prove or trying to say why he's not great. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Just because somebody isn't a better lyricist than another artist doesn't mean that they're not a greater artist than them. Before, I referenced Jay-Z and Royce. No, I said nobody's going to say that Royce is a better rapper than Jay-Z overall, when the truth of the matter is Royce is a better lyricist than Jay-Z, but nobody's not going to say he's a better rapper than him. And another thing with this argument, before I get into an aspect that I specifically highlighted that I wanted to talk about, is it's funny how the narrative always flips when it's in favor of the person you like versus the person the next man likes. Because for years, when people have always said Wayne is the greatest rapper alive, Wayne is this, Wayne is that, I always argued that people like Royce, Lupe, Button were greater lyricists than Wayne, or why I held them to a higher degree than Wayne. People's argument was always how many records they sold, how many hits they got. So now the narrative has changed when you're talking about somebody with Drake and Kendrick. You want to say Kendrick's not a better lyricist than Drake. Make it make sense. So which is it? What narrative is it? Because before, when I was trying to say that this artist and that artist was a greater lyricist than this man, y'all wanted to say, well, how many hits he got? How many records he sold? So now when we want to talk about who won this beef, it's Drake had the more technically skilled records. Drake was the better lyricist in this all. And another thing I said before, I'm glad I remembered it. Another thing that I said before, I said that he would he could be the better lyricist all he wants to. Oh, I got off topic. Had a brain fart real quick. Another thing that I've said before was lyricism isn't the one package, the one part of the whole package of being a hip hop artist. Just like song making isn't the one package. Just like making hits isn't the whole package. I specifically mentioned it is the whole package is lyricism, delivery, substance, content, cadence, all of that. And whereas Drake might have had a slight edge in the lyrical aspect, Kendrick mopped the floor with everything else. He had several different varieties in all of these diss records. None of them sounded the same. They all sounded different. They were all in a different cadence. They were all in a different tone. The content was always there. Delivery, bars. Whereas Drake sounded the same on every single record, outside of maybe harmonizing on Family Matters, but he sounded the same on the whole record. It's just his bars was there. Whereas Kendrick had bars and he constantly switched up. No diss sound the same. And that's what it's about. He basically put on a whole hip hop performance. Gave you a little mini EP with the variety of records that he put out during this diss. Not to mention he had the most disrespectful records. The most overpowering records. But I digress. But they finding all these ways to disparage Kendrick. Because they can't deal with the loss for Drake. 2, they don't like Kendrick. So they pointing out these lines that Kendrick said that might have been lightweight. But we act like some of the greatest of all time haven't done the same thing. But again, we like to change the narrative. We like to flip it around. We like to pick and choose when we point out things. Lil Wayne said, we gonna toast these ninjas Pop-Tarts. He's y'all's greatest rapper alive. Drake said, so many chains, they call him Channing Tatum. This is the guy y'all said better than Kendrick. See how I can point out one line? See how I can do that? See how I can... Yeah. Jay-Z said 38 revolved like the sun around the earth. The sun doesn't even revolve around the earth. The earth revolves around the sun. I digress. Big said, you look so good, I suck you. I ain't even gonna say it. But if you know hip hop, you know Biggie Smalls, you know it's a questionable lyric. But you see what I did there? You see how I could cherry pick certain lyrics and not point out the great lyrics that have been said? You could do this with your favorite artists. But it doesn't fit your narrative. We have to stop. Another narrative I despise, I think is so hilarious, is Kendrick only shines when he's talking about Drake. Kendrick only has success when he's talking about Drake. Kendrick only making money because he's talking about Drake. Like Kendrick doesn't have the highest grossing hip hop tour of all time prior to Drake just beating that just here recently with J. Cole on his tour. That was in 2022. He's been on his tour since 2022. Just came off in March. from Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. The album y'all called mid. But he's only succeeding because he's talking about Drake. You know how much of a clown you sound like? Pulitzer Prize, Grammys. He was talking about Drake. Oh, all right. Got you. You're delusional. You need to get it together. You need to fix your life. What Cat Williams said, you have a something like a affinity to losers, and that's not like you. So do better. I'm not gonna delve in too much, but these people, you only choose what fits your narrative and then flip it when it's in favor for you. And it's disgusting. That's how you know who you can debate with, who you can talk with, and who you can't. That's why I choose my battles most of the time. That's why I don't even really go back and forth with people on social media anymore, because what's the purpose when I can address all of that on my podcast? But I'm not going to be too much more in that. I just had to point that out. You know, you want to point out certain lyrics from Kendrick, cool. I could point out certain lyrics from your favorite artists as well. Don't flip the narrative only when it favors you. Is all I'm saying. Don't flip it. Accept the loss. He lost. It is what it is. Is it being drawn out? Yeah. So what? Did Drake not do that himself? Did Drake not draw out back to back? Did Drake not open his OVO Fest that year with Charged Up and then playing back to back? Back to back? Hello? Was back to back not on the NBA All-Star weekend? Was back to back not being played by Zach LaVine in the dunk contest that year? Oh, but it doesn't fit your narrative. Precisely. Got you. Spurs Offseason. Another thing I addressed earlier on in one of my past episodes. I specifically stated on here that my biggest two offseason acquisitions I would like to see my Spurs make is drafting Zach Edey and signing Chris Paul. This is episodes ago. This was before the playoffs started, or it might have been right after the playoffs started. I said these were my two acquisitions. Because if you acquired Chris Paul, I felt like that would be perfect for Wemby, because I've seen what Chris Paul did in New Orleans with David West, Tyson Chandler. I've seen what he's done with the Clippers with DeAndre Jordan and Blake Griffin. I've seen what he's done with DeAndre Ayton in Phoenix. I said that. And I said it would be a match made in heaven with Wembanyama. Now, we didn't get Edey, but we pulled off the floor general, which we've been lacking. Because again, like I said, I started out watching Spurs games and not missing, specifically because of Wemby. But when I saw the way that his teammates completely disregarded him, like he wasn't wide open every time, because when you're 7'4" and you have a 9 foot, 10 foot wingspan or reach, whatever it is, you're open every time. Just throw it up. He's going to get it. Nobody else can reach where he can get to it. But no, they completely disregarded him and ignored him like he wasn't out there. So I couldn't watch. And I felt like the perfect acquisition for them to make would be to acquire Chris Paul. And God dog it, I'll be damned if I didn't get my wish. I'll be damned if I didn't get my wish. We got Chris Paul. We didn't get Edey. Matter of fact, we didn't get no big. And quite frankly, that was what pissed me off the night of the draft, was not getting a big. Because granted, I'm excited about the acquisition of our rookie, I'm excited about the acquisition of Chris Paul. I'm excited about the acquisition of another key veteran piece in Harrison Barnes. I'm excited about what we do have. What I'm not excited about is the fact that we still don't have size. People was acting like because I was making a big deal out of us trading Dillingham and not really acquiring nothing but future picks down the line in 6 years, that I was crazy. But the truth of the matter is I wasn't necessarily pissed off that we traded Dillingham. I was more pissed off at the fact that we didn't get no immediate pick right then and there to at least draft a big that we keep seeming to ignore even before drafting Wembanyama. So while I look crazy, let me let you know that our starting power forward is a small forward, playing power forward, who's 6'7". Wembanyama's backup is Zach Collins. It's not going to cut it. And yet we have yet to make any free agency moves or acquisitions to get another big to pair with Wembanyama. And you're not going to, in a league, I've mentioned this before, in a league that has become more big dominant, again, like in the past, those guys aren't going to cut it against the Jokic and Aaron Gordon, 6'11". Isn't going to cut it against Karl Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert and Naz Reid. Isn't going to cut it against Embiid and Drummond. I can go on and on and on. I don't want to hear anything about is a more small ball league. No, it's becoming more big dominant again. And if you don't have at least a competent big down there to support Wembanyama, we're going to get punked. So I'm still waiting to see if we're going to acquire another big one way or another. I know they're talking about Lauri Markkanen, but Markkanen is more of an offensive force. We need somebody who's a glass eater. And we had an opportunity multiple times during the draft at that. We had an opportunity with Valanciunas. We don't know more. He got signed immediately. Like, Drummond was out there. You let him get signed. Like, what are we doing? There's no support for Wembanyama in the paint. And this has been something we've been lacking for years. We need to acquire big. If we acquire a big or two, I'll be satisfied and I'll be happy. Off the Spurs. Rules against NBA super teams. Now, the reason why I bring this up is because when I was watching, I want to say it was an episode of Brian Windhorst's podcast. Excuse me, got a little choked up. I told y'all I'm not fully better. I'm still trying to heal up from whatever the hell it was that I had. But on Brian Windhorst's podcast, it might not even been Brian Windhorst's podcast. I think it was NBA on ESPN. I heard him make a comment because they were talking about the Clippers situation and why they broke up, they separated, and why Harden got the contract that he did, why George didn't get a contract, and why Leonard got the contract that he did. He said that the NBA implemented the rule that they implemented because of the Clippers to prevent them from creating their super team and to prevent future NBA super teams. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, what rule? I never heard of no rule like that. So, and then he keeps bringing it up as he's talking about the Celtics, because the Celtics, you know, they signed Jaylen Brown last year to that $300 million deal. They signed Tatum this year to the $300 million deal. And they just signed Derek White and Drew Holiday to a crazy deal. So he brought it up to remind everybody. He said this league was implemented because of the Clippers and to eliminate future NBA super teams, because they want the league to be spread They want the league to be back to a point where you like have your 2 stars and a deeper roster. So as he's bringing this up, I'm like, what is he talking about? What rule? I never heard of any rule, but he would never elaborate on what rule. So I did my research so I could present that to y'all. And I dug and I dug and I dug, and I never seen nothing specific, but finally I Googled and I found this article. And I pulled it up for y'all. And hold on one second. Let me see if I could find it. Here we go. I found this article. So basically, what it says, this is I'm gonna read the article out to you. I'm gonna read the part about this specific rule and what they were talking about. So it says the NBA and the NBPA signed a new 7-year collective bargaining agreement beginning July 1st and running through the 2029-30 season. The announcement comes just ahead of the start of the NBA free agency. This was last year. So it says, a key element of the deal is a second tax apron, which could prevent the advent of super teams or franchises that or franchises that employ multiple players with maximum salaries. The new second apron states that any team spending roughly $17.5 million above the tax limit will face spending limits on acquiring free agents and also potential draft pick penalties into the bottom of the first round if they are repeat offenders of the second tax apron. So basically, what it sounds like is the higher you spend on your players, on these stars, the less you'll be. Once you pass that threshold, the less you'll be able to spend in free agency. And if you break this rule, or if you go past this rule and you continue to do so, then you're gonna start to get stripped of your draft picks or reduced to lesser draft picks, and you will continue to face a more severe manner down the line. Now, I never knew about this rule, but I like the rule. I hate the whole super team thing. I've always hated it. And people think just because I don't like LeBron or whatever, that I think that's the reason why I think that I don't like super teams, that super teams have always been around. Negative. That's not why I feel like LeBron and them started that, and why I don't like super teams. Because LeBron and them did start that. The new era of the super team, everybody wants to bring up the Lakers in 2004 with Kobe, Shaq, Karl Malone, Gary Payton. How old was Karl Malone? Karl Malone was ring chasing at that time. His late 30s, early 40s. Gary Payton, same thing, ring chasing. Just like he was ring chasing when he went to the Heat and got his ring with Wade and Shaq and then hung it up. Ring chasing. I don't count that. I count that as a player going to a team just like Chris Paul. Everybody knew Chris Paul wasn't what he was before. He still had some juice in the tank. We knew he wasn't what he was before. But when he went to the Warriors, they knew he was ring chasing. Nobody considered that a super team. And it's the same thing with Boston. Boston wasn't no super team because those dudes, now granted, they weren't at the end of their career like those other guys, but they was right at the tail end of their prime. Them dudes was 29, 30, 31. When LeBron and Wade and Bosh did that, they were mid-20s. Right at the beginning of their prime. And they linked up. I can understand if you are at the tail end of your career, you're past your prime, and you're just trying to link up to try to get a ring once, maybe twice. But when you're joining together and you're doing this and you're right at the beginning of your prime, not even at the peak of your prime, right at the beginning of your prime, that's where I have a problem. But I didn't necessarily just have a problem with that. I had a problem with the effect that it had on the rest of the league. Because then the rest of the league tried to do it. Now everybody's trying to do it. Now Kevin Durant is leaving to try to go join what the Warriors built over there. Now you got him leaving to go team up with Kyrie and James Harden over here. And then he's doing it again in Phoenix with Booker and Bill. And you had other players going, linking up, trying to do the same thing. Everybody's trying to create these super teams, and it's stupid because you're so top heavy and the rest of your roster is so garbage. It just looks dumb. I prefer the throwback style of the league when you had two stars, two superstars, and you had a deep roster. That's what I like. It brings more quality to the game. So I'm in favor of this rule. Once I actually learned about it, I'm in favor of this rule because it got brought up because they was wondering, like, how are the Celtics going to be able to keep this roster intact? And Windhorst was saying that the Celtics are eventually going to face what the Clippers face this offseason. They're going to face it next season. They're not going to face it this season because what people fail to realize, they're like, okay, well, if this is a rule, then why were they able to give all these players this money? But what they don't understand is that just because a player gets a new contract doesn't mean it starts immediately. It starts when the year on this contract is up, and then that contract starts. So it's not going to impact them this year, but it will impact them next year. So don't be surprised if Derek White is out of there next year or Drew Holiday is out of there next year. They got to trade him or something. Because he was saying they're not going to be able to keep majority of these guys. They'll have them for this year, possibly next year, but more than likely they'll have to ship somebody out. And I like the fact that they have this rule, not specifically for the Celtics, but specifically for the betterment of the league, because it's much needed. It's much needed. It'll improve the quality of the league because I like the teams like Minnesota. Minnesota has a deep roster, and they're very well put together. And they got a lot of teams in the league right now that have deep rosters. And the league hasn't been like this in a very long time. The Nuggets have a deep roster. The Knicks have a deep roster. Even the Sixers, they have a deep roster. So it's better for the league to be in a position that they're in right now. And especially with this rule, I like it. I like the end of the big three super team era. Because quite frankly, I didn't like it to begin with. Matter of fact, over the last 10 or 15 years or so, my favorite sport when I was a kid coming up was always basketball, then it was football. But over the last 10, 15 years, that's dissipated. It's not even a question. Like, I still love basketball, but football is my sport. That's it. I'm doing anything to watch football. Basketball, I catch some games during the regular season, outside of my favorite team, of course. I'm gonna make sure I always catch their games. But I catch what I catch, then I'll lock in during playoff time. That's not like that with football. Football, I'm locked in regardless. If my team playing or not, I'm locked in. But it had a lot to do with the watering down of the game, the rule changes to help certain athletes, certain players, and then also the super team era just really drowned it out, just washed it out. So it's good to see the league make some rule changes to kind of bring some quality back to the league. But I also wanted to talk about during this podcast, I also wanted to talk about health and being dedicated to a healthy journey, a weight loss journey, or whatever aspect it is, whatever goal you have when you're approaching a health journey. Because now, granted, I've fallen off here recently and I'm about to get back on track, but most people that personally know me know that last year in 2023, I started back my health journey after having fell off for 4 years, pretty much since COVID had started. Eating habits had got completely poor. Hadn't been in the gym in 4 years, and blood pressure was extremely high. One time I had to go to urgent care because I went to a dentist appointment and my blood pressure was so high that they was worried about me. But eventually, I reevaluated, I reassessed, and I told myself I needed to get back in this gym. I needed to get back eating right. Because there are certain things about my body that I was starting to feel I didn't like, that wasn't normal. And I had to get back on track. And it just took me to motivate myself. Because one thing about me is when I get out of my eating habits and I get out of my workout regimen, it's extremely hard for me to get back on because I start making excuses for myself. I'll say I'm going to the gym tomorrow, and then tomorrow comes and I'm like, I get off of work and I'm like, I'm too tired. I'll go the next day. Then the next day comes, I'm like, I'm too tired. I'll go the next day. And it's a cycle that just keeps going. Whereas when I'm in it, there is no stopping me. I'll go maybe twice a day for 7 days a week, if you let me. And that's what happened last year. Last year, I finally put all the excuses aside and I forced myself to get in there. And after the first few days, I was locked in. I was fully dedicated and I was locked in. And from March to August last year, I lost 62 pounds. I started out, I was 302. I got down to 240. Now I've put about 25 back on just over the last 7 months because of being off and on, getting away from the gym and getting away from my eating habits. I keep trying to get back to the better eating habits, but I'm about to get relocked in. I'm about to get refocused because I'm trying to get down to about 215, 220. But it all starts with dedication and discipline. People ask me all the time, how the hell did you lose 62 pounds in 5 months? And it's easy. It was dedication and discipline. I stuck to a low calorie, high protein diet. I meal prepped, which takes a lot of discipline because meal prepping, anybody who meal preps knows you have to find a day and you have to dedicate 2 or 3 hours to meal prepping. And yeah, it's a lot, but it pays off in the end because every day when you could just grab and go your 3 meals throughout the day and be good, it helps you out a lot because 1, you don't have to prep every day, and 2, you can just grab and go and you're staying consistent on your diet. And I was locked in to going to the gym and making sure I'm getting my little bit of cardio in and I'm doing the proper workouts. I'm switching up the workouts, switching up the reps. I was locked in. But I bring all it up to say, like, that ain't a just me thing. That's something anybody could do. All it takes is discipline and determination. As long as you're motivated and you stay disciplined, you could lose a lot of weight in a short period of time too. You don't even have to lose that much weight in that period of time. I'm just a maniac when I'm locked in on my weight loss journey. Like, my wife can't stand it. She always tells me she can't stand when I get on these weight loss journeys because I lose my mind. I overindulge on it. I obsess with it. That's what she said. I obsess over it. But that's because when I have one goal in mind, if I know, like, I can say that weight loss is my goal. But if I have a target weight, I won't stop until I'm at that weight. And I'm going to do whatever it is possible to get to that weight. But it's a determination and discipline. How disciplined and how determined are you to achieve that goal? I just happened to be doing death-defying stunts while I was trying to drop this weight. Like when we had that summer last year where we wasn't getting no rain, but the heat index was like 110, 112, 115. And every break I got at work, I'm outside walking laps around the parking lot, sweating my ass off every day, on top of going to the gym too, on top of eating the meals that I had prepped. If you're dedicated and determined and you maintain being disciplined, you can achieve that goal too. Because a lot of people, including myself, use excuses for certain body ailments. You use the excuse of you getting older, but I'm here to tell you that it's not a getting older thing. Yeah, some things do start to ache more when you get older. When you get sick when you're older, that starts to pass. It gets a little bit more difficult for that to pass when you get older. Yeah. But a lot of body aches and pains that you endure can simply be cured by working out, maintaining a healthy eating habit, and exercising appropriately. You don't even have to work out like I work out, because when I work out, I go to the gym, I'm in there for 2 to 3 hours. I do a whole lot, to where the point where by the time I leave the gym, I lose anywhere between 3 or 5 pounds every time. But you don't have to do that. You can simply go for a walk for 25, 30 minutes or whatever it is that you do. But when you're exercising and you lose that weight and you get the joints in your body and everything back and lubricated, should I say, you start to see a lot of those pains go away. I have a lot of knee pains and a lot of feet pain because of being overweight for so long. But when I hit that gym and I dropped them 60 pounds, them same pains I wasn't enduring anymore. I have arthritis in my knee because of something that I did when I was in my early 20s. Basically, I tore my meniscus but didn't know because I never went to the doctor, and continued to play basketball and football on it for a year and a half. And because I did that, the bones grinded the meniscus up into pieces and carved into each other, giving me permanent arthritis for the rest of my life. And the doctor told me I wouldn't be able to play basketball or football ever again unless it was once a week, maybe twice, depending on my pain tolerance. And when I tell you, as I've gotten older, the pain has gotten worse the more strenuous stuff I do, but there's a cure around that. Well, yeah, there's the easy one. You can have knee replacement surgery. I'm not having no knee replacement surgery while I'm in my 30s. But what you can do is strengthen the muscle around that knee, and it'll stabilize and reduce the pain in that knee. Because the pain from having basically bone on bone, no meniscus there, it doesn't come from the bone on bone. You're not feeling it from there. It comes from the tendons or ligaments on the outside that connect the bottom to the top. Because when you don't have nothing in the middle to stop the bones from sliding side to side, they hit those tendons, which creates the pain and swelling. So if you're doing, which is part of the reason why when I'm locked in and I'm working out, I do leg days twice a week. And when I'm doing that, I see so much less pain. I endure so much less pain in my knee. But it's all about dedication and discipline. So I only brought up this segment because I wanted to let y'all know that you can do it. It just takes discipline. It takes dedication, determination, and discipline. You have to see it through. You have to follow through. You can't continue to make excuses for yourself. So, but I'm not dragging this out too much longer. I'm about to cut this short. I'm going to try to make sure I do the best that I can to make sure I produce more podcast content for y'all. It's just, again, I would have had more episodes. I would have brought more to the table for you guys before now, but I had got sick. But I'm not even going to lie to you. I would be foolish to say that I haven't been thinking about doing less of this and more of my gaming content, because what I've noticed is, although I've gotten a lot of support from this podcast, I've gotten a lot of subscribers. I'm at 440 now. Although I've obtained a lot more subscribers and I've gotten a lot of positive feedback from my podcast, what I tend to do is when I see one thing working more than the other, I start to gravitate to the other. And although I've gained a lot of subscribers to this channel because of this podcast, Over 100 cents. Over 100. I've noticed the attention to my gaming channel is far greater than what I'm doing here. And the difference in content is substantial. So like the most views on one of these episodes that I have is a little bit over 100. It was one of the episodes in the heart of the Kendrick and Drake beef. And again, that's really good for a podcast that's typically 50 minutes to 150 minutes to an hour and a half long. That's really good to get those views and get that following. But when I'm watching, these episodes have been around for over a couple months. But when I'm watching content that I just posted on my gaming channel, get 1.1K views in less than a month, or nearly 500 views in less than a month, in less than 3 weeks. What am I supposed to do with that? How am I supposed to look at that? So now I'm sitting here, I'm like, should I push more of this out or should I push more of that out? The difference in content is crazy. And I noticed that a couple years ago. That's why I started my gaming channel, because the demand for gaming content is insane. It doesn't matter if you're good or not. People are going to gravitate to it if you got the correct content. And that's why I've started to shift more towards my gaming content and more towards building my Twitch community up. I know the last couple episodes I was trying to get my affiliate status. I'm affiliate now. And I'm not only affiliate, but I have 226 followers now on there. When just a few months ago, I was chilling at 12. So the difference in content is substantial. I'm still gonna push out podcast episodes. It's just when I got the attention over here, I gotta feed the crowd that's giving me more attention, more. So I'm gonna do my best to balance it the best way I can. But if you watching and you a gamer and you into gaming content, go check out my Rio West gaming channel, and also go follow me on Twitch. Rio West Gaming. It's getting live. We taking off. You know, this gaming content is going to the next level, especially with college football 25 coming out, Madden 25 coming out, 2K 25 coming out. Then we got Dragon Ball Z, Sparking Zero coming out in October. It's gonna be a crazy year for gaming, so especially for the gaming content scene. So y'all go check that out. Y'all follow me on Twitch, Rio West Gaming. Y'all go subscribe to the Rio West Gaming YouTube channel. Also follow me on Instagram and TikTok, Rio West TV. You can find me on Facebook, all that. But until then, I appreciate you all tapping in, tuning in. We're going to get back at y'all with another episode next week. I promise y'all, I'm going to bring it. I'm going to try to stay consistent now that I'm better, now that I'm more healthy. So I'm going to try to stay as more consistent as I can. I need y'all to tap in the comments, though. Y'all give me some topics. Give me some stuff that y'all want me to talk about. Because I ain't going to lie. I'd be lying to y'all if it would be easier if I had somebody else to go back and forth with. Because I'm pretty sure they'd have more content that I could talk about. But I'll be starting to run dry thinking about what I'm going to talk about. Now, I've had stuff to talk about now because I've been off for a long period of time and a lot has happened. But I'm not going no long period of time without dropping an episode. So if I'm going to drop an episode every week like I say I am, I need the content. So if y'all got ideas, y'all want to know my thoughts on certain subjects, put it in the comment section. Let me know. Let me know what you want me to talk about, and I'll delve into it. But until then, it's been real. I've been your host, Rio West. Peace.